Hello, hello. I don't know. Can you hear me okay?
Hmm.
Okay, cool. For some reason, my thing sounds low, but it's probably just my. Look at this
Yeah,
ridiculousness, Jordan.
could be that traffic jam in your earbuds.
This is ridiculous. Oh well, but why should we don't sugarcoat it here at BeerNet Radio?
Harry will get you some AirPods.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure I'll get 10 miscellany dongles and whatnot. Another Jen's Chilada time neon. Speaking
Yeah.
of neons, today we're talking about the on-premise. But before we get to that, so did you watch the game last night?
Did I watch Taylor Swift?
Yeah. Did you
Is that what
watch
you're?
Taylor Swift last night?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Leslie's family they're big Chiefs fans.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. No, it's just so crazy. Like all of the buzz around Taylor Swift and Travis Kels. Is it Kelsey or Kels? I can never get it right.
Kelsey.
Kelsey. Okay. I
Hmm.
always call him Kels, and Bill's like, it's not Kels. And I'm like, which one is it again? It's like when Bill messes with me, though. So, like yesterday, we were at the soccer game, and one of the kids' mom's names is Brandy, and Bill keeps calling her Randy. And I'm like, stop it, Bill. I'm going to start calling her Randy.
Randy. That's
Randy,
good. Yeah,
right?
no, it's Kelsey.
Kelsey.
KLCE.
Yes.
But
Right.
I've seen on Twitter there's some Swifties making their own jerseys and they spell it KELSEY.
That's
So
so there's people below me, is what you're saying.
no, there's people
uh,
still figuring out football. So
right. I
yeah.
mean, hell, if she can do that for football, what can she do for Bud Light?
Yeah, I know. It is
uh,
pretty amazing how many
right.
people she's bringing in. So
Yeah.
she's got the
Swiftonomics.
golden touch. Yeah.
She sure does, man. It's awesome.
Hey guys,
What's
Hey,
happening?
Jason.
how you doing?
How are you?
Doing all right.
Let me officially introduce you then. I'd like to welcome to BeerNet Radio Jason Murphy, Director of Beverage Strategy and Innovation at Buffalo Wild Wings, which, of course, is the nation's, I believe, single largest draft retailer. How many locations do you guys have now? Like, definitely more than 1,500 or?
No, but around 1,200.
Okay, got it. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you the most obvious question, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we've been talking about this industry-wide draft slowdown. Are you guys seeing that at all? And if so, what's driving it?
Yeah, I mean, we're not seeing anything too crazy different from what the rest of the on-premise industry is seeing, right? Like we're all fighting for traffic right now and trying to get as much as we can. And so that's certainly, the way that on-premise traffic patterns are trending is certainly not helping anyone.
Yeah.
And then kind of a double-edged sword for our business. Our attach rate, our overall beverage alcohol attach rate is healthy. It's actually growing. So more people who are coming in are deciding to uh, enjoy and imbibe when they're in our establishments. But less people are choosing beer.
Mm.
Right now, more people are shifting into spirits and cocktails. People are shifting out of beer. And so beer is challenged right now and trying to claw its way back. So,
Right.
when you see an industry that is challenged for traffic, which inherently means you're going to have less drinkers, plus
Right.
the fact that the people you do have are choosing to drink other things, it's kind of a double-edged sword for beer right now.
Right. Why do you think that is? Is it price? Is it intrinsics? What is it?
Why people are switching?
Yeah, why there's less beer drinking, right?
I think it just has to do with a lot of the macro landscape things that you're seeing in the shifting across the industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are like have been slowly shifting away from beer towards
Mm-hmm. For a
spirits
long time.
for the last few years. I don't think it has much to do with pricing, at least for kind of taking the macro look at it. I think it just has more to do with kind of consumer preferences and where folks are going, and they're
Mm-hmm.
going to spirits, they're going to margaritas, and we're not immune to it, even though we are a large pourer of draft beer.
Right.
People still come to us for a great beer, and even more so, like we talk to a lot of people who tell us they're spirits only drinkers, and
Mm-hmm.
they come into a Buffalo Wild Wings and instantly they're a beer drinker.
Right.
So we do still have that effect on people, but like I said, we're not immune to what the rest of the industry is saying, and that's more people shifting out of beer and into something else.
Right. Right. So am I hearing like maybe overall you guys are your bev-alcs sales are up, but maybe draft is down, or generally?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, so overall, our bev-alc sales are healthy. Our bev-alc sales are up, but it's definitely on the shoulders of what we're seeing for spirits is definitely carrying the load for us. And when I say carrying the load, I mean carrying some of the weight that beer's losing. Like beer is far and away like our biggest category and biggest segment, right? It does great, but like if we weren't gaining in spirits right now, we'd be having some tough conversations around what's happening with total bev-alc.
Do you think that lower, like Gen Z, like of course, legal drinking age Gen Z, do you think that is a lot of where this spirits drinking is coming from, switching, or is it all over the place?
I think it's all over the place, and it's a good question that we haven't spent a whole bunch of time digging into our internal sales data to see like who exactly is shifting out of what. But I from what I gather, especially across the industry, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of millennials, older millennials, Gen Z, or not Gen Z, the Gen Xers who
Gen
are
X, yeah.
trading out. You know, case point of one, myself, like I'm drinking a lot more spirits than I used to beer. I think it's just kind of it's where everyone's going these days. Unfortunately for beer, but fortunately for the spirits category. Like thank God people aren't deciding to just stop drinking altogether. Although that is happening. We do see the same stuff. The same studies that y'all are seeing with Gen Z. I think the last thing I saw says 1 in 4 Gen Z, legal drinking age Gen Z, are just choosing not to drink alcohol, and are going to either nothing at all or to marijuana, cannabis. So it's something we're keeping a very close eye on, although we don't think it's had that big of an impact on our business yet.
Yeah. Interesting.
And over like, the start of football, are you seeing a tick up back in draft, or is it still kind of moving slow with spirits still gaining?
We do see definitely a tick up back in draft. It's our obviously people come to us during football season for occasions that are like 2.5 to 6 hours long. Like you're there for a slate of multiple games, and the way the categories just really work. Like if you just think about them for what they are, a 6-hour marathon session of watching football is not a great margarita experience, right? Like how many margaritas
I would hope so.
can you responsibly have watching that much football? So like it's the perfect draft beer occasion, and it's actually the way that we're kind of trying to focus our bev-alcs strategy moving forward. Like we were on TV years ago with the tagline Wings Beer Sports, right? We haven't been on TV with that tagline for a while, but you go out and you talk to people about why they drink what they drink at Buffalo Wild Wings. And particularly, I talked earlier about those spirits drinkers who become beer drinkers when they come into our restaurants. You talk to them about like why you do that. It's like, you guys are on TV telling me you're Wings Beer Sports for years. Like I believe you. Like that's what you told me to do when you come into a Buffalo Wild Wings. So that's what I do. And so we're trying to be really on the nose and intentional about how we direct people in their experience in a Buffalo Wild Wings towards like where they should be drinking. And that wing occasion is obviously a really good beer occasion. That sports occasion is perfect because you're there, you're in our restaurants for like 4, 5, 6 hours, even if it's 2 to 3 hours. You're coming in for one game, like that's a really good time to have 3 or 4 light beers or a couple IPAs and a light beer. Like you can pace yourself and you can still be like, we're only going to serve people responsibly, but like you can responsibly have 2 to 3 to 4 drinks depending on how long you're staying there and how much you're eating. It's not a great like old fashioned and margarita occasion. However, like we are really pushing, like I said, everyone's fighting for as much on-premise traffic as they can get right now. We are really fighting for that dining occasion. And that's like me and you, Jordan, or Jen, like we all go out to dinner, and that's like an hour to an hour and a half occasion. And that's a perfect spirits occasion for us. Like that's where I really do want to push people towards getting a margarita or a cocktail. I do know that the spirits drinker is the most valuable drinker that comes into my sports bar. So like selfishly, like I would rather people like become spirits drinkers when they come in because it's a better check for us. But like if I'm realistically talking about what's the right experience when you come into Buffalo Wild Wings, if I can train our servers like on one thing day one, like during the greet, figure out what they're there for. If they're there for wings and sports, like let's launch into like what beers you should get. But if you're there for, going out for dinner, you're here to try our burger, like that's a perfect cocktail occasion. Like,
one more on, what's ailing draft. Do you feel the focus is lacking on draft and, in general beer for that matter from distributors, suppliers as they kind of become more and more beverage companies?
I don't know if the focus is lacking. It's a good question. I do think the priority in marketing and sales and events is really being funneled more towards off-prem and C-store and less towards on-prem. That's not like to cast a wide net across like all, like our distributors do a really great job in our sports bars. So do our retail or our supplier partners. That being said, like C-store is the shiny thing right now. And there's a lot of attention being paid there, not only from like where they're going to dedicate their time, but from our supplier partners, like where they're going to focus their innovation towards. And a lot of the C-store innovation doesn't really help out what I need on premise right now. Like, there's only so much I can do with FMBs. Like, I don't need more than one Imperial IPA right now, and it seems like it's the race to like who can get to 10% the quickest. I took that line from someone else, so if thanks, Nick. But it's I don't need more than a couple hazy IPAs. I don't need more than like one or two FMBs. I certainly don't need more than one or two Imperial IPAs. So it's just kind of like a lack of interesting innovation within beer over the last couple of years. And I think Jen, like you and I have talked about this.
We've talked about this. Yeah.
This isn't something that's new. It's been an issue that we've been facing for a while. So I think that hurts. I also like, this is a theory of one that I've come up with over the last couple of weeks. But like, I'm starting to wonder like if beer has a fun issue, like a lack of like seeming fun, at least to the consumer. And I start thinking about like the things that we talk about in the offices here at Buffalo Wild Wings. And like what I hear all the time is like, what can we do with this celebrity partner to promote this alcohol brand? And if you think of like where those celebrity partners are backing, it's spirits 100% of the time, right? Like, and I don't know how beer is supposed to go after celebrity, because right now, like you look at these spirits brands that are really interesting, that are celebrity backed, like they're all celebrity owners, right? And I don't know what celebrity owners are going to go out and start a brewery and start that investment, but it just seems like there's so much of that energy and excitement and fun and enthusiasm, and it's all in spirits and wine right now, and we don't have any of it in beer.
I got one for you, Jason.
Yeah.
So down here in Texas, I don't know if you guys have this on tap in Texas, McConaughey, right?
I have not heard of that one yet.
Okay, so this is the thing. So it's Twisted X in Dripping Springs, and it's McConaughey. And I need to interview them because it's like they have to have this license, right? Like Matthew McConaughey has to have somehow blessed this with his bongos or something for this to be a thing. So we got Matthew McConaughey, maybe. We'll see.
Okay. Well, so where I thought you were going to go with that, which is a Texas brand, is 8.
Okay, yeah, right.
Like,
totally.
And that's one that's actually like a good case point for us. Like, I know Troy Aikman has been heavily, like, he's been active with that brand, like not just with Buffalo Wild Wings, but with other bars and restaurants. Like Troy came and poured some beers at our sports bars. I know he's doing that at other bars, and like that drives excitement and people to like think about beer. And I'm not saying that beer needs to have a celebrity backing like The Rock or Bryan Cranston, Aaron Paul, but like that also doesn't hurt, right? And so I think I don't know where beer goes with that, but it's certainly something that's driving interest into spirits that beer just doesn't have right now.
Right, and then of course I have to ask, how's 8 doing on draft over there?
It's doing well. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
We've been excited to have them as a partner. They've been great partners for us. So.
Good. Well, I'm curious, what beer is gaining traction on draft over there at your bars right now?
Yeah. Mick Ultra continues to be a workhorse for us. It does, year over year, it just keeps incrementally growing, which is fantastic. It's our number 2 beer by volume right now. but our number one beer by dollar share. So it just continues to crush it. Modelo does well. It's still growing for us year over year. And you talk about, again, like they're on a huge base. That continues to grow when we have Modelo available. We're seeing growth on Coors Light and Miller Lite, so it's good to see trends there. Over the last 6 months, we've seen positive trends on Dos Equis, which is great for us. We hadn't seen growth on that brand for a while, so it's awesome to see that doing what it's been doing. And then a couple craft brands, Golden Road Mango Cart has done really well for us. We had that on feature earlier this year, and it did really well. It was up 150% year over year, mostly in part because of that feature, but it's been pretty sticky. Even post feature, a lot of the sports bars who weren't required to continue to carry Golden Road Mango Cart have kept it on, and the sales trends, velocity trends have continued to rock with that. And then and we also did a Voodoo Ranger Juicy Haze feature at the beginning of the year. And that was the most successful craft feature that we've run since I've been here over the last 6 years. Right. It absolutely crushed it for us. On a regional note, we've seen Pacifico do really well for us. That's been we intentionally programmed that out west. And it's been a really solid performer for us. Its rate of sale is some of the best trends we have in the country. It's not quite Modelo levels of Mexican import sales for us, but it's getting close. Like we're pretty excited from what we're seeing there. Coors Banquet out west is also doing really well. Out west, it's a top 15 brand for us. It's up double digits year over year with turnover rates similar to Pacifico. Great Lakes region, the Busch Light is crushing for us.
Interesting.
They're up over 50%. They're a top 10 beer in the Great Lakes. So excited to see that. And then in the Southwest, both Yuengling and Stella are top 10 performers for us. And both are growing year over year.
Right. I have to ask, I mean, you mentioned Modelo, right? Are you guys still having those Constellation Keg issues? Because I know some people are, and some people are getting back to normal.
Yeah, we got hit really hard with that. We program quite a bit of Constellation brands on draft, and we have Modelo nationally. We've got a couple hundred Pacifico tap handles out there. A lighter bit of like Negra and Corona Premier, but we still program all of them. And there was like a 2 to 3 month period where they told us like, hey, like we're going to be light, like we're not going to be able to get much for you. We're starting to get back into a little bit more of a groove with Modelo Especial. And I'm hearing the other brands are going to start coming back online here within the next couple of weeks to where we're going to have a more steady supply of it. But it was pretty rough trying to get draft at the beginning of football season, which is like our key window of, driving traffic and getting eyeballs on it. So that was a tough couple months for us. We had to pull all Constellation products off of our draft menu from August, and it's actually going to remain off of the menu until middle of October. And we will put Modelo back on middle of October. We're going to keep the rest of the Constellation draft products off through the end of the year, actually. But getting Modelo back on allows us to get our Michelada back on, which we were starting to see growth in our Michelada. So I'm excited to see that get back in there. So it was tough sledding for a little bit, but we're excited to at least get some of that back on.
Good.
And is there any particular new innovation this year that stood out? I mean, I know you were talking about I can only have so many of this and this, and then for beer, it seemed like Oro and Heineken Silver were, the two big ones, and those are just Mick Ultra competitors, which is your number one.
We didn't pick up Oro yet. I think some of our sports bars maybe have picked it up at a local level, but to be honest, I haven't really tracked sales for that because it's at a smaller base. We did pick up Silver, and Silver has outperformed expectations. Like it's done well for us, so we're happy with what Silver's done. I kind of touched on it earlier though, like not super stoked about a lot of the innovation that we've seen so far. There's some things that are coming out that kind of make sense for us. Like I really like things that bring in a lot more flavor. And we might have talked about this before, but I think one of the reasons why people like spirits and why seltzers did so well specifically like White Claw and High Noon, is they just do really well with flavors. And I think you talk to some of those brands, and that's what they tell you they're best at, is like executing at flavors. It's not necessarily the seltzer itself that's good, it's the flavor of the seltzer and how good they are at executing like what a pineapple something should taste like. And I think that's what really pulled consumers towards those categories. And I think that's kind of how we might get like folks back into beer a little bit. I already brought up like Mango Cart doing so well. Like it's because Mango Cart is a real, like it's a good beer, but it's a really good mango beer. People are really interested in that. I think Citrus Squall from Dogfish Head is one that's starting to pull people a little bit in that direction. It's also a little bit of polarizing because it's at 8% ABV. So like you've got to be able to like, you got to be ready to drink that much. There was one product from Sam Adams, so staying in the same family, that I liked quite a bit that I think they're discontinuing, and I would love for them to rethink that, is Sam Adams Epic Squeeze. It was, I think, a 5% like fruited wheat beer. It was some of the best liquid that I've tried over the last year. And it was off-prem only. I think it was mixed pack only. I'm like, guys, like, let's just play around with this on draft. I don't know if we're going to have the ability to do that or not, but that's the kind of innovation that excites me moving into 24, is something that maybe provides a little bit more diversity in the beer category, utilizing flavor as like the main driving force. Like I'm probably tapped out on domestic light lagers or light lagers in general. We'll monitor trends, and if there's another light lager that makes sense for us to bring in, we'll do it. Like Pacifico's a good example. Is Pacifico just stealing share though from another light lager? Like probably. Like I don't think I'm really bringing new volume into those specific categories. Like I'm just shifting volume around between the 10 or so players that I have on draft. Same kind of goes for IPAs and like specific, like I don't need another hazy IPA. Like I'm good with 2 or 3, and like I'll make sure I have the right hazy IPAs on tap. But I'm not a cold box that can afford to bring in 10 to 15 different hazy IPAs. Like we're going to select the 2 or 3 that make the most sense. So it's really like, if we're going to have 8-ish, 10-ish, we've got 30 handles, so 8-ish, 10-ish light lagers, 5 to 6 IPAs, a few wheat beers and an amber here and there. It's really trying to balance like what are those like 10 handles at like the long end of the tail that help us drive maybe some incremental sales and traffic. That's really where I'm looking for that new innovation, something that's going to drive drinkers back into the beer category, instead of just shifting the ones around that we already have. And I don't think there's been much yet that we've seen that's necessarily blown us away.
Yeah. I assume the same is true for non-alc beer as well.
Yeah,
kind of keeping that roster pretty tight.
We'll keep it tight. Athletic is the leader in the clubhouse for a reason right now. We brought them on. We took a bet on them a couple years ago. We haven't seen the success with them that we had hoped. And I don't think it's anything that they're doing or we're doing. Like I go back to us being a draft brand. You brought that up at the very beginning. Like they're a package focused brand, and we don't do a great job promoting our package to begin with, but people just come to us for draft. They don't look to us for package. So we see that with basically everything that's not Corona. We have a tough time selling package. So we're going to keep pushing Athletic. Like I'm a big believer in it, and I'm still a big believer of like, if someone comes into our sports bar and switches from any light lager, any beer that they're drinking to an Athletic, like the good, like I'm glad they did that. Like that person needed to switch at that point. And so I want to continue giving folks those options to switch to non-alc when they need to, but also like let people know who aren't drinking, like, hey, we've got some really good non-alc options for you if you're interested in it. But to your question, Jordan, like I don't know if I need to bring in any more right now than the 2 non-alc, well, and Heineken 0.0. Yeah. I don't know if I need to have any more than those 2 Athletic and Heineken 0.0 in the cooler.
And you've never had that on draft, right?
We haven't done it on draft. I know that Athletic is testing draft. I don't think we're going to be first to market with that. I think we're going to let that shake out a little bit and see kind of how that gets picked up by the on-premise consumer and some other bars and restaurants. I don't know all of the science around it, but I do know that there is some concerns around like you need to be moving that beer pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You need to make sure those lines are the cleanest in the building. And I don't know that I want to be the one to test that out right now. I think I'm going to let some other things do that for us first.
In a tighter footprint, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were talking earlier about like your assortment and the white space and, you know, how we could use more flavor. And I know you said you want to keep people in beer, which we appreciate. But what about players like Craft Standard, you know, like the draft cocktails? How are those moving with you? Do you see a future for those, a larger future?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to that kind of the beginning of the conversation, right? Like it's no secret that like draft is struggling everywhere, right? And we've made a really great investment. I'm glad we do in having 30 handles in all of our sports bars. And we're monitoring those 30 handles really closely right now and seeing like what do we have room for and what do we not. And like in my perfect world, those 30 handles are probably dedicated to beer all of the time. We're not in that perfect world right now. We're starting to see with the slowdowns that we're seeing in draft, like we're starting to look really closely at things and like, okay, well, what do we do with these handles? Like the worst thing is to have a, you know, only use 20 handles of a 30 handle system. I think that's just a bad use of an investment that we put a lot of money into. Like, and so what do we start to do with those? And Craft Standard is one of those things that we're looking at, or cocktails on tap. Like you start to see batched cocktails, draft cocktails becoming more and more popular in the on-premise. I don't think probably like 5 years ago, maybe pre-COVID, I think people looked at batched cocktails as maybe somewhat inferior in quality. And I don't think people look at draft cocktails or batch cocktails like that anymore. I think people, specifically draft, I think people gravitate towards those. And I think that could draw like actual more eyeballs into a specific cocktail category. So that's something that's super intriguing. Craft Standard as like a specific brand, we're very interested in them because like quite frankly, like they built a better mousetrap on figuring out like how to bring cocktails to a draft line that doesn't require you like putting a magnet in the bottom of a keg that keeps it constantly agitated, or having someone have to go back there and like constantly stir it. I think they've just figured out like how to make a product that dispenses like almost foolproof from the lines, and their liquid tastes good. We have not brought on Craft Standard as like a Buffalo Wild Wings sponsored initiative test yet. It's something that like they're gonna hear this podcast and be like, come on, like we've been talking about this for months. Like, why haven't you done this yet? But like we're still internally kind of finalizing how we're gonna get that to market. That being said, like I know I have some franchisees across the South and Southeast who have brought in Craft Standard and are quite frankly like in love with the product. So it's something that we're exploring. We're going to continue to explore. I hope to be in some kind of a pilot test with Craft Standard by the end of this year, if not really early next. Something that we would look at like innovation to launch maybe mid to late 2024. I think that would be something great to bring on for football season next year. If not Craft Standard, we might explore other draft cocktail options. Although, like I said, I do think Craft Standard has a good product that they've put on the market so far. And then, we'll continue to look at draft trends and monitor all other options, right? Like we're not a huge wine place, but I wouldn't say wine on tap is totally off the table.
Right.
I don't think, kombucha on tap could potentially come back. We just brought on twisted tea. We have twisted tea on draft. That was a 1-for-1 swap for Truly, but like we could look at expanding that. Like, are there some non-alc things we could do? Strawberry lemonade is actually the non-alc strawberry lemonade is the #1 made drink behind our bar, more so than any other spirited cocktail. So like, can I save our bartenders some time and prep by having that on draft? Like maybe that's the right business decision, because a lot of these like draft cocktails and batch cocktails, like they help labor wise too. They help our bartenders, they help speed of service, they get drinks out quicker. Like there's a lot of good business reasons beyond just like draft slowdown to be doing a lot of these things. That being said, like I go back to what I started this question off with, like I'm still motivated to have as much beer on tap as we possibly can. So our main priority is like, let's try to fix beer first. And then how do we grow everything else, or like build around that based off what some other business needs might be.
Right. Yeah. I guess my only other question, and you probably answered it already with this answer, but any other things you can share about like fall mandates or spring mandates, how things might change, what might come on, what might come off?
Yeah, we're not looking to make a ton of changes, but rather like fine tune the assortment that speak to our guests. We did a pretty comprehensive bev-alcs study at the beginning of this year, where we went out and talked to the consumers and asked them like, what do they want out of a Buffalo Wild Wings beverage program? And then we would dive specifically into each category. What we found is that from a beer perspective, we pretty much have everything they want. We've got more of an awareness problem. People really know us for kind of 10 to 12 handles, and that's your light lagers plus imports plus maybe some national craft. And like, don't get me wrong, those do really well for us. They're our bread and butter. What we found people want from our program is maybe some of the long tail stuff that we're not selling at like the best velocity today. But when you talk to people, they're like, that's what I want. I wish you had this. Then you show them a menu and they're like, oh my God, you do have this. Like, I didn't know. So you'll probably,
there's your commercial.
Exactly. Right. What we found, I brought it up at the beginning, but like people still think of us as Wings Beer Sports. What that actually means though, is they think of us as like Wings Domestic Beer Sports. What we need to reframe that to be is Wings All Beer Sports. And all beer meaning like I can find everything that I want, which we found that we have. So you won't see us change much in terms of like the actual mandates, because we've got a pretty good assortment right now. You just might see us change the way in how we speak about things outside our four walls. And someone brought this up to me. We could go on TV for the next year and never talk about chicken wings, and people are still going to know that we have chicken wings, sure. Right? Like we're never going to do that. We're going to talk about wings. But the same could be said for like light lagers, right? Like I could not talk about light lagers for the next year and people are still going to know that we're a great place for light lagers. Right. You might see us change what our communication is outside the four walls about what we do have on tap. Mm-hmm. And that's to really kind of focus on some of the things that we're not getting credit for, and maybe to like help boost some of the products that we don't discount that are still seeing good trends for us, like a Mick Ultra or Modelo or Blue Moon. But you're going to see with our resets, you're going to see like things that are pretty consistent with industry trends. Focus on imports. You're going to see FMBs in markets where that's relevant, and then a continued effort with craft as a whole. Hard seltzer, maybe like be a de-emphasis for us. We might start to move away from some of that. But you're going to see us focus a little bit more on craft. Like craft is like struggling for us, but like there's some bright spots, and we're going to focus on those bright spots. Like you just look at a few markets. Four Noses About Damn Time. Four Noses is a brewery out in Colorado. I put that beer on 5 years ago. So it's been on for a while. That beer's up 25% for us in Colorado. Like it continues to grow. There's Fiddlehead IPA in the Northeast. That's a beer that's up 50% for us. Main Lunch is up double digits. Even brands like Two Hearted in the Great Lake region for us, like that's a beer that's a top 10 performer for us and is up 25%. Allagash White up double digits in the Northeast. Like we're going to keep finding and identifying what those craft brands are, and we're going to try to double down on those and continue to make those grow.
Yeah. Cool.
Sweet. That's all I got, Jen.
Yeah, I think me too. I mean, that was very thorough. So thank you, Jason. I appreciate that.
Yes, I would love like a Taylor Swift Travis Kelce.
Right? It's funny. We've been talking about that a lot today after the game yesterday. Yeah. So full
actually, Travis Kelce has a tequila brand he's backing, so I don't think we're going to get him.
Oh, really?
Of course.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jason. I appreciate it. And I hope to see you out there soon.
Yeah, thank you both. It was great talking to you.
See ya.
Cheers. Thank you. Bye.